Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, whatever the case may be. This is Mike, and this is Mike Dell's World Mobile again. This time we're on US 31 between Charlevoix and Traverse City, Michigan. Actually, I don't know if that was Atwood or what. I don't know, some little wide spot in the road here. I just made a quick run up to Petoskey for the courier company, which I still work for part-time. And just thought I would turn on the recorder and say a few things anyway. I got the Beagle with me. Got Mr. Banjo sitting shotgun over here, panting because I don't know why. Seems to be a nervous rider lately. But I think it's probably because of all the snow and slop and all that. He doesn't like the noise of going through slush or whatever. Of course, today's not so bad. The last couple of days we've approached 50, which is amazing because last week we were in the negative teens every night. And one day I think we were minus 23 Fahrenheit, not Celsius. Of course, Pellston, Michigan got to minus 40 Celsius, which is also minus 40 Fahrenheit. It's where the two scales cross. Oh, I know where I'm at. I'm just going by Torchport. Torchport's it's a little town of Torch Lake, and they got a little airport along the road there, that little grass strip, which is now snow strip, and I don't think anybody flies in and out of there in the winter. It didn't look like it. They don't plow it. But speaking of snow, we've lost about half of our snow. Actually, probably more accurately, it's compacted. The snow is just about as tall as the stop signs around all the piles, and in certain spots it was even more. It's kind of like driving through a tunnel, because we really didn't have a let-up of the snow from Thanksgiving through, pretty much the end of February, which is even odd for here. Of course, you probably heard the reports. The Great Lakes were 90% froze, which is close to a record, or at least definitely close to a recent record. And so we've had quite the brutal winter up here. It seems to have let up some, although we're supposed to be in below zero temps. Maybe not tomorrow, but the next day. I don't particularly care for it when it gets that cold, but it does happen, and it's happened a lot in February. It was, like I said, we had a good solid week below zero, and quite a bit below zero on some days. Then you add the wind to it, and the wind chill. You can hear the dog panting here. He got up close to the mic. I guess he wants to be on the podcast. All right, back off, dog. But we're almost home. Well, not almost. I probably got 15, 20 miles yet before we're home. But like I said, just thought I'd do a quick update from the car here. Otherwise, not a whole lot going on. Just trying to stay out of trouble for the most part. And hey, it's not really a sponsorship thing, but I did want to let you know. There we go. English, please. I did want to let you know that Blueberry, a company I work with, has now got an affiliate program, which means if you ever wanted to switch your hosting, if you're a podcaster, you wanted to switch your hosting from wherever you are over to Blueberry, that's for your media, not your website. So you still want to have your website. They have an affiliate program, and I'll have a link over at my other website, podcastingtechcoach.com, to click on that and sign up, and you get 30 days free hosting. at Blueberry, and I get a little kickback from that. Got a full disclosure. Of course, I also work for Blueberry, so full disclosure there. But if you're an aspiring podcaster or you're already a podcaster and want to move your hosting over, they got a pretty good deal going on right now, and they're going to have different specials, I guess, for lack of better, special offers. They're going to have different ones over time. Of course, the same goes for media statistics. If you want to track your podcast, regardless of where you're hosting, as long as you can access the link to the MP3 file, you can get on Blueberry's statistics system, and it'll tell you how many downloads you had and where they're at and what they're using to download or listen on the page, or where they're finding your podcast. It's really good statistics, much different than web statistics, because they can get inflated. But I won't go into that. I go into that more over at Podcasting Tech Coach. And yes, I hit the rumble strip. If you did hear that, I don't know if you did. But got those darn rumble strips now in the center of the road. So if you start crowding the center line, it rumbles. Or if you crowd the shoulder, it rumbles. So anyway, not to sound like I'm beating a dead horse here and trying to get you to sign up for something you don't want. But hey, if it's something you'd be useful for you, there's 30 days free. And can't beat free, I guess. Depends on what you're talking about, I guess. You get what you pay for, but free 30 days and then pay for it after that. You get the best of both worlds. Well, let's see. Just trying to think of anything else that might be of interest lately. Other than the weather, everybody talks about it and nobody ever does anything about it. But weather's kind of a big deal around here, at least this winter. One good thing about it is the lakes here, Lake Michigan and Huron, which, by the way, is one body of water, not two, even though they're, the eastern lake is Huron and the western lake is Michigan, but they're really one body of water that's shaped like a big horseshoe. And anyway, that has been at almost historic low water levels for the past few years. It's been creeping up the last couple of years, but this year it's going to get a pretty good boost, because of most of the snow and because of the ice cover. And it's not because the ice melts and how that works. You can fill a glass full of ice and water, and when all the ice is melted, the water level's the same. Well, it's the same with the lake. But what does add to it is two things. We don't get lake effect snow when the lake is froze over, which lake effect snow is where it sucks the moisture out of the water on the lake and then dumps it on the land. So the lake doesn't lose as much water to lake effect. And, most of it goes back into the lake eventually, but it's a lot better if it doesn't come out in the first place. And then on top of that, all the system snow we've had, not the lake effect, but the snow that just came in as a storm, and all that melts and gets into the lakes. They're predicting we're still going to be below historic averages, but it's going to be significantly higher. Last I heard, it was going to be like 18 inches higher, and we were only something like 25 inches below historic, averages. So it's going to be pretty good boon for the lake levels, which will be nice for those that live along the shorelines. They won't have to have their docks as long, or they won't have to dredge as much, in the harbors and whatnot. They haven't had to do a lot of that, but I guess they are planning on doing some of that this year. I kind of keep track of that, the shipping. The other interesting thing with the weather this year, might as well talk about the weather, is the St. Mary's River up in the between Canada and the U.S. There up by Sault Ste. Marie. Of course, I go to Sugar Island a lot, which is in the St. Mary's River between U.S. and Canada, just below the Soo Locks, which, in case you didn't know, Soo Locks is a set of locks that get the boats up to the Lake Superior level when they're going north, because otherwise it'd be a waterfall. I forget how many feet the difference is between Lake Huron and Lake Superior, but they have to go through they go into a lock, and then they fill it full of water, and then the boat is on the level with Lake Superior and so on, and back and forth. But it's one of the major shipping lanes for iron ore and I don't know, a bunch of commodities that come out of Wisconsin and Minnesota and upper Michigan. And of course they haul a lot of coal also to the big plants down in Detroit and Cleveland and whatnot. So, you get all these big boats. But anyway, the St. Mary's River, Sugar Island, of course, doesn't have a bridge going to it. It has a ferry system, actually just a ferry boat, a little 4-lane, probably hold 20 cars, 30 cars maybe on a good day. It goes back and forth across the river. It's, a 3-minute ride. But the people that live on the island year-round depend on that to, get back and forth to the mainland. And most of them work on the mainland because there's really not a lot of jobs on the island itself. And anyway, this year they've had more than their fair share of ice problems. Normally the Soo Locks close in mid-January, and once that happens, the river freezes up except for the channel where the boat goes across, the ferry boat, because the ferry boat just goes every 15 minutes across the river and keeps the channel free of ice. But this year the ice was just way thicker and formed way quicker, and they've been having a lot of ice problems. They have I don't know, was it last week, 2 or 3 days the ferry could only run a couple of times a day, and they finally got it all sort of cleared up. But now the Coast Guard's now starting to break the ice in the whole St. Mary's River for the beginning of the shipping season, which, regardless of the ice conditions, starts here, I think, in another couple of weeks. Or at least that's when the Soo Locks open. And that's usually the start of the shipping season. And so when they break, the Coast Guard, well, they start from the south, and that's downriver from the locks. So normally during the breakup, Sugar Island doesn't get too much trouble from breakup, but when they get above the where the ferry crossing is on the river, all the ice has to pass by there. So they have a couple of days where they've got ice problems. But the problem this year is there's so much ice and the coverage is so thick that there may not be a spot to put all that ice. It may not flow downriver. They're going to have to break up a big chunk in the bigger lakes to get the ice to flow out of the river. And that may not happen right away. So, I don't know, it could be interesting. It's kind of fun. I get on this boat tracking website or ship tracking website, and it shows where all the Coast Guard cutters are and all the freighters and even shows when the ferry's crossing and all that. And I'll kind of watch that sometimes depending on what's going on. And it's kind of like that APRS thing that I do with my ham radio. If you go to MikeDell.com, click on Track Me, there's usually a map there, and it shows where I've been or where I'm going most of the time. And that's via the APRS, via ham radio. That's Automatic Position Reporting System. So the ships have a similar system, and there's a good website to find that. I think it's boatnerd.com, and on one of their pages is the ship tracking updates every 10 minutes, and you can see where all the lake freighters are, and Coast Guard cutters and ferry boats and whatever. It's mildly interesting. I actually put it up on Chromecast on my TV down in my office when I'm working, and look up every once in a while and see which side of the river the ferry boat's on, or if there's a icebreaker up there. I just got an email. Oh yeah, big news for me. I am now an iPhone user. Yeah, I finally drank the Kool-Aid, bit the bullet, whatever you want to call it. I picked up an iPhone 5S. And I'm not necessarily unhappy with Android. I still have an Android tablet that I use quite regularly. And up until recently, I had an Android phone. I've always had the Nexus devices, either because I don't like all the add-on crud that the carriers and or the manufacturers put on it. Like Samsung, you get a 16 gig phone and it's got 9 gigs of crapware that you can't delete. So I don't like that. So what made me think about an iPhone was a couple things. I've been a happy iPod Touch user for many years, and I thought, well, geez, all the iPhone is a phone with the iPod built into it. The way I use an iPhone anyway, or an iPod. And so that killed two birds with one stone. I don't have to carry two devices where one will work. Second thing is the carriers don't have any say-so over what goes on the phone. I'm with Verizon, which was notoriously bad at not updating their Android phones. I had a Nexus phone, and it's supposed to update as soon as Android updates, and of course Verizon has to quote-unquote test the update. So then they hold off and can go 6 months. So, by the time I was getting, 4.2 on my phone, Android 4.3 was out. And, up until I quit using that phone, I still had 4.2, even though 4.3 is out. So, I don't know. So, with Apple, when they put out an update, everybody gets the update. Period. And the carriers have nothing to say about it, which is good. So I'm still on Verizon because around here they're the best coverage. So that's what I tend to use. But I still have the Android tablet, the Nexus 7, and I like that. But so far I'm enjoying the iPhone. The screen's smaller. I get it. But remember back in the day, the smaller the phone, the better. So, maybe that's it. But but I did get the S, so I got the one with the fingerprint reader and the M7 motion processor, which I haven't really figured a good use for yet, but somebody will. And, so far all my apps are working. And, what really made the move easy for me is, like I said, I was using that APRS system. Of course, I do use it on the phone. I do have a radio capable of doing it via radio, but doing it with a smartphone is actually a little more reliable because there's sometimes you're out of range of a ham station that relays to the internet, so the tracking isn't as reliable. So I do use the phone. I was using APRS Droid on the Android, and up until recently, there was no equivalent application for the iPhone. Well, a buddy of mine is an iOS developer, and he developed IAPRS a few years ago, but it didn't do what APRS Droid did. Well, he just came out with an update, and I'm beta testing it. Well, he's got the update out. I'm beta testing a newer update that fixed a few bugs that I happened to find. But anyway, it seems to be working good. Like I said, check it out over at MikeDell.com and click on Track Me, and you'll see how well it works. But that one and the hotspotting for, you can share your internet connection via Wi-Fi with the phone. On Android, there was a way to hack that to where you could turn that on and not have to pay Verizon. Well, Verizon got in a little bit of trouble with the FCC, or the federal government, because when they bought that spectrum for LTE, they had a deal on there where it was going to be open as far as any device or any application that somebody wanted to use on it could do so without having to pay extra to be on their network. And they, for the longest time, were charging $30 extra a month. Yeah, I know, that's a lot. $30 extra a month for hotspotting, or personal Wi-Fi hotspot. And I found out just recently on any 4G phone from Verizon, which is LTE, they now turn that on by default, so anybody can use it that has a 4G phone, and it doesn't cost any extra to use that feature, which was good because that was those were the two, the APRS and the hotspot were the two things that I used that at the time I was thinking about switching to an iPhone I couldn't do without jailbreaking the iPhone. I don't want to jailbreak the phone, Yeah, I know Apple's a closed system, but whatever's there works, and most everything is there that I need. Well, now everything's there that I need because the hotspot now works, and the with the update to IAPRS, that works. And I know my buddy Tom there, Trucker Tom Wiles, over at TruckerTomsPodcast.com or TruckerTomPodcast.com, I think. Anyway, he just went. Well, he didn't go the other way. He had thought about an iPhone and decided to go with a Note 3, which is basically a tablet that you hold up to your head to talk. But hey, it's like a 5+ inch screen on it, which is kind of cool, I guess, and it works for him. So he kind of went the opposite way, and of course it's a Samsung, so he's got all that extra Samsung software, but he actually uses it, some of it. They have I guess a pretty good video editor program, and he's been doing pretty much a daily YouTube video, Trucking with Tom is what he's calling it, and that's over at YouTube. I'm sure if you type in Trucker Tom, you'll find it. And anyway, it's he does it with his phone. It was one of the things he said. If I'm going to keep doing this, it's got to be simple. So he hits record. He does his thing. He spends a couple minutes tacking on an intro and an outro, and pushes a button, and it goes to YouTube. If it gets any more than gets to be any more pain in the butt than that, he wasn't likely to do it every day. But some of the stuff he comes up with is pretty interesting if you're into following truck drivers and other stuff. He doesn't just talk about trucking. And that's a pretty interesting videos most of the time. It's usually just him talking into the camera. So anyway, yeah, that's the other big news for me, geeky news, as I'm now an iPhone user. And I also got a Mophie battery case, although I'm not currently using it. I figure I'll use that when, like if I'm going to a conference or something where I'm not going to be able to charge my phone if it needs it, especially if you're going to use it a lot. These things eat up batteries, although the battery life on the iPhone is about triple what the Nexus was Even when the Nexus was new, it just ate batteries. But I used to carry around a little, battery pack thing if I wasn't going to be near something. But most of the time I'm either at a desk with a charger on it or in the vehicle. The added bonus of the iPhone is I can plug it into my stereo in the van here, and instead of having to have an extra charger, it just charges off the stereo, and I can listen to my music or podcast through the speakers. That's why you heard that email come in so loud, because it is hooked to the stereo, because I was listening to a podcast earlier. And I recorded another podcast on this trip for my other show. But, it's just handy that way, to have one device that, fulfills the iPod. And yes, I know I could get a podcatcher program for Android, and it does music, and it's all well and good, but, Apple seems to have their stuff together in that department, so might as well utilize it. I'm not an Apple fanboy by any stretch. I do like their products for the most part. I definitely like their computers better than Windows nowadays. That wasn't always the case, but I'm a convert for the most part. Like I said, I do still have a Windows machine that I keep around for a few tasks that they don't have a Mac equivalent. And yes, I know I can put Windows on a Mac, in a virtual machine or via boot camp, but that's just extra pain in the butt. And so, like for programming my radios, my ham radios, especially the D-Star radio, you pretty much have to do it via cable and program rather than through the front panel of the radio, unless you want to pull your hair out in frustration. And so, like I said, that Windows laptop that I have, which is a relatively recent one with Windows 7 on it, and I don't use it a whole lot. I actually have Ubuntu on it also, and I don't really use that for much either, but I just like to kind of keep an eye on what's going on in the Linux world in case I do have a use for it. But like I said, for the most part, I've got Apple. I've got a laptop that's now 6 or 7 years old. Well, I don't know, I guess about 7 years old. That is every bit as fast and useful as it was when I bought it. And it's pretty rare for a Windows machine to even last that long. Most of them anyway. I mean, I'm sure there's some quality manufacturers making Windows machines. But, for the most part, it's, 7 years on a laptop and no desire to upgrade it. It's upgraded to the highest Mac OS I can upgrade it to, and I've put in a solid state hard drive and, maxed out the RAM, and it's totally usable for what I use it for. And so that's just fine. And that Windows 8, I've dealt with a couple of Windows 8 machines, and that's just downright confusing. They've fixed it a little bit with 8.1. They put the start menu back on it, so at least if you're used to Windows 7 or before, you're not totally lost. But that whole tile thing probably works great on a tablet, but I'm not so impressed on a desktop or a laptop. But I'm sure it's plenty fine. You get used to it. So, well, I'm about to make the final turn into the driveway. Probably edit these and get them posted tomorrow sometime. So by the time you listen to it, it'll be a later date. I don't even know what date it is. What is it? March 11th, I guess. And I think this would be episode 104 or maybe 105. I don't know. Or 204 or 205. There we go. See, I didn't look that up before I started recording here. So I'll probably just put this one up pretty blank. No fancy intros, outros, whatever. Another stream of consciousness mobile podcast. Catch you later, and you can catch me later.